Alternative Reality, Volume 1, Chapter 8. Black seemed to be today's theme, because that's exactly what awaited Whale and his group inside the tomb. Unlit, narrow stairs fit for no more than two people, walking shoulder to shoulder, led deep into the mountain, which the group descended more by touch than by sight. Long abandoned was the descending path, damaged and slippery, covered in the same mist that came through the doorway before. Peculiarly, the mist kept on drifting upwards from the deep like some exhaled breath, leaving them feeling unpleasantly chilly and damp as it passed down below. Lower. The feet. It was making their feet feel unpleasant. Pull your heads out of the gutter. Heck, as if that wasn't enough, the floor itself was almost completely obscured, and going down proved to be somewhat of a nerve-wracking challenge, each step taken with utmost care. Luckily, the group found a torch further down, which they happily requisitioned for the greater good. Their greater good. Uneasy glances were exchanged and the torch was lit, the doubts and fears somewhat alleviated by the dancing light cast by the welcome fire. One can only wonder why Whale couldn't have just conjured up a fireball of his own as a light source. Maybe he didn't think of it. Or maybe he was too much of a Scrooge to spend the mana for the benefit of others. Who knows what winding, twisting paths his mind had taken. Further down they kept on going, with the uncertainty constantly growing within their hearts, as not a sound could be heard. For some reason even their footsteps were cut off without a single echo. Swallowed by the mist below. You'd think that a dungeon would be a loud place, filled with critters to pound on for loot and glory, yet all they got a taste of, for now, was a long and uneasy journey down a flight of run-down stairs in desperate need of maintenance. After at least 15 minutes of heart-rending fun, the group finally reached an end of their descent. Eyes now cast upon a dark corridor that stretched out further ahead until it was swallowed up by utter darkness. If one looked into it long enough, it almost seemed like something loomed within, waiting. Whale suppressed a shiver at the sight. Width-wise, the corridor wasn't much different than the path they recently descended down, but standing shoulder to shoulder wouldn't be such a cramped experience anymore. An improvement, although minuscule. People with claustrophobia would still find it an unpleasant place to be at, of course. Heck, guess such individuals wouldn't be here in the first place. Unless they've ended up passed out drunken or dragged here by prank-loving colleagues. Such things happen, you know. The world is a scary place. Without much delay, but certainly with plenty of hesitation and exchanged glances, the party continued onwards. Totally fearless, very restless, and slightly pissed off due to the lack of action. Another 10 minutes passed uneventfully. Whale started to wonder if he'd spend the rest of the week traveling abandoned corridors like this, wasting away a valuable experience and loot bonus. That did not set his mood high. Of course something like this would happen when he finally got lucky enough to score big. Damned con artists, he mumbled under his breath, blaming the game creators for all his woes and worries. Yet just as he was about to start scorching the walls out of frustration, the corridor suddenly ceased. Light suddenly expanded beyond its tight confines, spreading out into an expanse, the vastness of which was more felt than seen. As much as their torch could illuminate, there seemed to be no end to the place at all, and all around darkness seemed to press oppressively against them, while the mist continued to crawl beneath them, unpleasant as ever. They couldn't see a single thing, couldn't feel a single rustle of air, yet frozen in place, with bated breaths they listened. Why? Because now something new reached their ears. a barest whisper of something. Scratching. Perturbed, the group exchanged glances, yet remained where they stood, heads tilted, leaning into the sound as if hoping to better understand. Soon, the scratching became more apparent, and something guttural seemed to slip out from the dark around, creeping ever closer. Quite an unpleasant atmosphere. Morale wasn't too high. The bandits were starting to have second thoughts. Hey, maybe we shouldn't have went in here. That doesn't sound too good, one of them whimpered, but only got an elbow nudge from Whale. You're saying a life's worth of fortune isn't worth a little risk? Shut your goddamn mouth, Whale jeered, half jokingly, and dragged an unwilling colleague forward, practically pulling him by the hand, as the group finally started advancing. Only Bob was holding up all right, though the greedy sparkle in his eye made Whale's fists clench unconsciously, like he was holding onto money that was being threatened with theft. Possible rivalry was in the making. Greed was a dangerous thing indeed. Finally, the scenery seemed to shift in a more dungeon-like atmosphere. The air grew stale and rotten, while the occasional bone stuck out from within the churning mist as far as the eye could see. Not too far considering how dark the place was. Quite an unpleasant neighborhood to be in, and Whale forgot his complimentary cookies at home. This won't end too well. As the light from the torch reached further into the expanse, the group finally found their welcoming party. Deeper into the spacious hall, divided into sections by large crumbling pillars that disappeared in the darkness high above, a feast was taking place. 3 hunched-over figures were busy devouring one of their own by the looks of it. Goblins. Visibly different from their brethren on the surface. Black, slimy, oozing skin, 2 sets of overly sharp teeth. These little critters were smaller, more savage, but that somehow made them look even more dangerous. They didn't even need weapons, since their long arms ended with lethal-looking claws. Sharp. Not something you'd want to feel against the skin. They hissed at the sight of light, almost forcing certain individuals from the group to turn tail and run for their lives. Not Whale though. He just spent over half an hour traversing through narrow dark corridors, haunted by the sound of his colleagues' breathing. They didn't exactly smell like flowers either. All that time wasted with not a single item or experience point gained. He was done waiting. His patience reached its foremost limit. So much so that there wasn't a fear in this world that could have stopped him now. In a blink of an eye, Whale conjured up a fireball, and amid screeches and squeals, launched 3 of them in quick succession, one after the other. Light flared as the goblins were set on fire within seconds, and lurched into a 4-legged sprint straight at the party with beastly screeches let loose from fanged mouths. Due to the strange liquid oozing from their skin, the fires had a hard time spreading. Thus the bandits, who now didn't have much of a choice, finished them off with a few unsteady blows. Considering how some of them were shaking, it was a miracle they managed to hit at all. Whale was ecstatic. Finally, sweet experience. Just those 3 goblins raised his level by 10%. Let's not forget that the experience gain was still divided by 5, due to the bandit party. If by chance there were more of such monsters to hunt, Whale wouldn't mind even living here, though he might catch a cold due to all the damp air. A few moments of complete silence passed, excluding the heavy breathing coming from close proximity. Bob and the other bandits exchanged glances as if to see who was so out of breath, only to turn their heads in unison at the sound of jiggling coins. Whale, all hunched over like a gremlin, was already looting the bodies, his chest heaving with excitement, lips twisted into a leer. Before any of the group members could complain about fair loot distribution, the whole expanse around them erupted into motion, a fury of sounds that almost deafened. Screeches and growls, the scratching of feet and the screeching of metal upon stone. Bob was already sweating all over, while his buddies were on the brink of hightailing it out of there. Yet there was Whale, grinning like a madman. "Quickly, back into the corridor. We'll be overrun if we remain here," the magician then exclaimed, after regaining his composure and sanity. "Most of it. Hopefully." Without a second wasted, the group turned around and sprinted back from whence they came, with Whale hesitating for a second or two. Giving the enemies beyond the dark a few moments to come closer, Whale waited a bit before he started casting his top 2 out of 2 spell, Inferno. Moments away, a large area in front of him erupted into a fiery festival, welcoming all who came, whether they wanted or not, engulfing them in its smoldering embrace. Inferno lit up a large portion of the hall, and Whale could only wipe away his own drool. The sheer number of monsters revealed was mind-boggling. You have gained experience. You have gained a level. He leveled up already. By the looks of it, quite a few goblins got caught in the fiery festival. Were they half dead already before the spell even hit? Well, not like Whale would complain. An ocean of those little critters were approaching, and those that passed through Inferno came away with mantles of fire that seemed to enrage them. So much for gratitude. Smiling, Whale only spared a glance or two at them, before he sprinted away after his fellow bandits, wondering for a moment if those cowards would actually leave without him if the magician didn't catch up. Well, even if they did, Whale was certain he wouldn't be going anywhere. Not with all this loot waiting for pickup. All that fortune, all that experience. It was almost too much to resist, just turning around and setting everything on fire. He would do his best to, however. There was no need to rush. He tried to convince himself. It was all his. Everything in this dungeon now belonged to him. Slowly, gently, he'll take it all. All of it. Whale grinned at the thought.